tonight.
If you've ever wondered how you'd feel if the voice of Zuko said the N-word, look no further than Blood and Bone, an action film whose characters have even more to say than its fights, despite those fights presenting some genuinely impressive feats of athleticism. Like, just look at this. And yeah, that's Bone, who, at first, doesn't seem that different from any other action star. But look a little closer. You couldn't be more wrong. When you think of action movie heroes, who typically comes to mind? Assassins, police officers, soldiers, things like that. People whose occupations thrust them into dangerous situations, whose problems arise from things outside of their control. Many action movies establish conflict by forcing their main characters to deal with a nearly unavoidable scenario. A cop has to investigate a dangerous gang, a fugitive has to run away from his pursuers, a soldier has to defend himself from the family of bloodthirsty werewolves surrounding him and his team. That's simply what their situations demand. Blood and Bone, however, takes a different approach. It makes its protagonist proactive, having the conflict arise directly from his actions. The story happens because of him, because he decides to act. Before the film has even begun, Bone's goals have already set the story in motion, and those goals inform us about his character, who he is, what he values. You see, Bone has a tragic past, and the elements that define that past slowly come to light as he decides to confront the very characters that made it that way. Despite having experienced the loss of those closest to him, he doesn't seek vengeance. Unlike many action movie heroes, Bone's motivations don't simply revolve around revenge, but on recovery, not only on attempting to remove the villains, but to correct their misdeeds as well. When we first see Bone, we know nothing about him, but from his very first interaction with other characters, we quickly discover that he is unlike anyone else in the film.
See this motherfucker right here? This motherfucker think he's special. Wanna be left alone and shit. Don't wanna be mobbed up with the rest of us niggas, like we ain't shit.
As the film progresses, this distinction between Bone and those around him only seems to widen. It becomes clear that Bone's motivations differ from the other characters in the film. He doesn't strive for drugs, sex, or money. He doesn't even seem to particularly enjoy fighting, and as he interacts with all manners of goons and gonads, these differences create a growing friction that lead to physical, even deadly conflict. But just when it feels like Bone stands alone, we meet the other half of one of action cinema's most compelling relationships, a foil that not only complements, but completes the main character. None other than the film's main villain, James. Much like Bone, James initially seems quite different from everyone else in this criminal underworld, creating a parallel between the main villain and the main hero. But unlike Bone, James is a fraud, one that has fully convinced himself that he is not. And James reinforces the apparent similarity to Bone by literally declaring the parallel himself.
I am not like the rest of those thugs you see out there smoking blunts and playing video games, and neither are you.
While on the surface, James carries himself similarly to Bone, saying that he doesn't cuss or drink or do drugs, and therefore carries himself much differently than his underlings, who not only accept all of these vices, but actively relish in them, these differences between James and his subordinates are largely superficial, performative. He still takes part in what actually makes them despicable, indulging in the same violence and evil as those he claims to be better than. He just does so with a more aristocratic demeanor, wearing expensive suits, driving luxury cars, and speaking in a way he considers sophisticated or gentlemanly.
Remember, profanity is a brutal vice. He that uses it is no gentleman.
James is just as vile as his henchmen, regardless of how much more elegantly he presents himself, how much he pretends to be more.
A warrior's life, that's a life for me. There's honor, virtue. A warrior's life must be pure of body and spirit. That's why I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use profanity.
James thinks he lives a warrior's life, but he only watches as he pays other people to fight. All of his self-imposed virtues crumble under pressure, turning to drinking or cursing whenever his sense of control begins to slip.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use profanity.
While you heads round about now, you be getting the picture about how the fuck we roll.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use profanity.
Oh yes, motherfucker.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use profanity.
You motherfucker.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use profanity.
Fuck we roll.
The man is a walking hypocrite who views people as his property to do with as he sees fit, claiming superiority over them, literally spitting on them, but ultimately being the same as them. Bone, meanwhile, actually is different, exposing the fraudulence in James whenever James tries to present himself as a superior form of life, the kind of man who looks down a busy street and feels compelled to claim ownership over it.
See all that? All of that is mine. Every block, every sidewalk, every alley. It's all so dark and unsophisticated. It is not where I want to be anymore.
In an attempt to exhibit this sophistication, James tries to teach Bone, sharing a quote by Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan once said, "The greatest pleasure is to vanquish your enemies and chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, and to have those dear to them bathed in tears."
And look at the satisfaction on his face. This guy really thinks being able to quote Genghis Khan makes you a genius. As James tries to recruit him to be another one of his underlings, Bone poetically reveals his true intentions, not outright declining him, but instead mirroring James by reciting his own Genghis Khan quote, one that should make it clear what Bone is there to do, that completely captures his character.
I am the punishment of God. And if you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
Of course, James lacks the awareness to recognize this quote as more than a mere friendly exchange, but as a declaration against him, a denial of any sort of similarity to James and all that he represents. Bone even ends this little retort with some condescension.
Genghis Khan.
And just look how James reacts to what Bone says. It seems like James didn't actually know who Bone was quoting until Bone revealed it. Just one of many examples of Bone exposing James as a pretender. You see, Bone is a troll, and more specifically, a master baiter, repeatedly taking subtle jabs at James's insecurities and provoking him to act recklessly. Bone often takes actions that have no purpose other than to embarrass or infuriate James, to expose the differences between them. When James pulls out a blade and adopts what he believes to be the stance of a warrior, yet another superficial display, Bone showboats his own superior sword skill, only to then toss the sword aside and fight James with the sword's covering, because much like the rest of the film, James is simply cosplaying as an expert while Bone is the real thing, so much so that Bone doesn't even need to use the actual weapon to beat him. And while James can play pretend, so too can Bone. Bone, however, does it on purpose. You see, at different points in the film, Bone stares at James's woman with these infatuated, uncontrollably horny eyes as if he's trying to steal her body from James. But really, he's just misleading him, painting himself as easily manipulated by sex, acting like just another one of the simpletons James thinks of himself superior to. Like, this dude only makes this goofy-ass face when he sees her next to James. It's very over the top, meant to get under his skin and elicit an insecure defensive reaction from him.
You're looking kind of hard there, ain't you, family?
Hard not to.
Yeah.
Even in the rare moments when James appears to take control, Bone still manages to overthrow him. You see, James attempts to seduce Bone into joining him by making promises of wealth and power. But yet again, James doesn't understand the differences between Bone and himself. Unlike James, who simply cannot fathom how someone might not value money and control, Bone can outright refuse these ideas, and does so in direct protest of James, right in his face, again adding a little bit of sass to his defiance. James believes he can control anyone, coerce them into doing his bidding, and if promises of pleasure and power don't work, he'll take a different route, like using veiled threats to force Bone to fight for him.
I don't like people that say no to me.
Only for Bone to continue trolling him.
Maybe you should get used to it.
Bone is an exception to the vengeful action hero, possessing goals with far more complexity than a mere desire to kill. He looks to correct the mistakes of his past and heal the people that those mistakes have harmed, and the subtle, enigmatic approach to his character implies so much about his past without ever revealing more than a few flashes. He feels fully formed, while the mystery remains. However, his relationship with the main villain is what really completes his character, providing him with a parallel, someone who magnifies Bones' qualities by showing how differently they manifest in a character with such contrasting goals and values. That stoicism, that discipline, that ambition that both James and Bones seem to possess come across far differently through one as opposed to the other. But these apparent similarities also allow Bones to reveal his personality through his interactions with this oppositional force. He doesn't just fight him, he exposes him, he taunts him, making it clear that despite his stoic demeanor, Bone has some sassiness to him as well. A troll.
Like I said, I'll think about it.
Bone isn't simply an avenger. His character can't be summarized by the simple desire to vanquish his enemies. He also has an implied history that's changed him, pushed him into enlightenment, transformed him into someone seeking more than the simple goals of most action heroes. It feels like he had already gone through a period of growth before the film even began, and this movie reveals what that growth leads to, the proactive choices it causes him to make, the very thing that set this story in motion. Bone now understands that simply fighting bad guys won't entirely solve the problems they create. He also has to seek out their victims and protect them, healing the harms these villains have brought upon the world. So perhaps my favorite line in the film is the final one, a line that makes it clear that James isn't the only ghost in Bones' tragic past and that his path of atonement continues, that he's made it his mission to continue the same work he did in this film, one step at a time.
Got some business to take care of.
And the film ends with this silent acknowledgement of Bones' dedication, of the magnitude of his decision, the light shining on him like some sort of ethereal being roaming the earth vanquishing evil. A punishment of God.
I am the punishment of God. And if you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
Thanks for watching.